Thank you for joining us for our first ever episode of the Superflexology Start-Sit series. I'm your host, John Bauer, and you can find me on Twitter at The Bauer Club. Of course, I'm joined by Mitch Sorensen, that's at DinoMC on Twitter, and I'm extremely excited to introduce our two additional co-hosts for the Start-Sit series, and that's Jordan Lindsay and Dan LaMagna. So, Jordan, let's start with you. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? You actually were on a previous episode of Superflexology with us, but why don't you just remind the listeners kind of who you are, what you do in the fantasy industry, and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I do the graphics, I do the spreadsheets. My best project right now I'm working on that I just started this week is I'm developing a a fantasy spreadsheet, where you can plug in the players' stats and everything, and it'll produce their fantasy points for your league. So you'll have the homepage where you can plug in your league's scoring settings, and then you plug in your guys' output for that week, and it'll give you the fantasy scorings and the weekly rank and all that. So I'm working on that right now, and I'm going to give it away for free to some people, and then we'll see how it goes. But that should be done probably by the end of Friday, so we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. I think that's going to be a very useful tool for a lot of people. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And you'll be with us every week. So for the next 17 weeks, we'll be spitting out these start-sit episodes. And then also Dan LaMagna. Dan, what's going on? Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me here. It's awesome to be with the Superflexology gents and Jordan. Been at this for a while, man. I'm kind of just cranking into the industry this year a little bit more, working with FF Statistics. The guys have been great to me over there, teaching me the ropes on some writing, and I'm doing some rankings. You can find my rankings on there if you're into that. And been at fantasy football since the 90s, man. Probably aged myself a little bit. Be doing stats by hand, picking up a USA Today Sports Weekly, and it's just evolved over time. I've coached, played football, owned a semi-pro team, currently work at Lackawanna College where we have a handful of guys in the NFL, and had some luck with the DFS industry. Made a splash with winning $7,000, $3,000, $1,000 in tournaments in the last couple of years, and chasing that million maker, pal.
Yeah, Dan, hopefully this year will be the year to get that million. And when you first told us, and Mitch and I were in a few different leagues with Dan. Dan, when you first told us about the semi-pro team that you own, Mitch and I were like, who is this guy that we have in leagues with us?
Man, it was my, living my Jerry Jones dreams here, and, recruited players like Austin Scott, who used to be with Penn State, and Keon Lattimore, who was Ray Lewis's cousin. So I really had 7 years of just living a dream there.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That's
so sick.
That's a really great story. Just to let the listeners know, the format that we typically want to run with these shows, it's going to be fast-paced, it's going to be quick-hitting, and the title of the series, the Start-Sit series, it's very self-explanatory. We're going to run through some Start-Sit questions that listeners have posed, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, league chats, and we're going to give our best advice, putting our best foot forward here. And at the end of every show, we're going to do a little DFS segment, and it's going to be based on DraftKings prices. We're going to be going over players under $6,000 that we think it's somebody that you need to have in your lineup. And we can break it down, whether it's tournament, whether it's head-to-head, whatever the situation is. But then we're also going to talk about a guy that is overpriced that we really should be avoiding. So at most situations, it's going to be a stud that we're not really looking to include in our lineup for one reason or another. With that said, let's get into week one. We're finally here. We finally have some real football to look forward to. And we got some great start-sit questions from listeners. What we're going to do, every question that we have, it's basically going to be a point system. So we're going to keep track as the season progresses. Every week on Twitter, we're going to be blasting out how many we got correct, how many we got incorrect. And out of the four of us, whoever has the least amount of correct answers at the end of the season, there will be some type of punishment, all in good fun, nothing crazy. But I think we'll open it up to the Twitter followers and let them decide what that punishment is going to be. So with the first start-sit question, and unfortunately there was no scoring provided, but Jordan, we're going to start with you here. Matt Breida, Derrius Guice, Damian Williams. Let's assume full PPR. Who are you going with as a last flex option there?
It's got to be Matt Breida. I'm probably going to contradict myself later in the show, but at this point, based off those three guys, I got to go with Breida just based off what we've seen. And truthfully, what we've seen from the Bucs defense as of recently, there's a very good chance that Breida and Coleman are both relevant on Sunday. I don't trust Damien Williams. I don't trust LaShawn McCoy, especially against the Jaguars. There's a chance that one of them gets a touchdown or two, but you don't know who it's going to be. And the same goes for the other one. But at this point, it's got to be Breida for me.
Dan, what are you thinking here?
I'm gonna roll with Jordan there on the Breida train. I think Kyle Shanahan, Niners backs, they just always produce. Some of my reading says it's Breida over Tevin Coleman, and he's healthy right now. A healthy Matt Breida looked awesome last year. I think he finds the end zone. I think it's a sneaky play in that Tampa Bay 49ers game with a total prediction from Vegas of 49. Guice. There's talent, but I think they're going to be coming from behind. I think anytime the Redskins were coming from behind last year, Adrian Peterson didn't produce. Now, I don't think Peterson's going to be in the mix that much, but not really feeling Guice. And then Damien Williams, they're just crowded. I like him. I would start him, but I'd go with Breida first. Sorry, Mitch.
All right, so we have 2 for Matt Breida. Mitch, who are you taking here?
Do I need to answer, or should we just move ahead because we all know what I'm going to say?
Just say it so we can keep track here.
Okay, so we're going with Damien. The big thing is Jalen Ramsey's going to take Tyreek Hill out of the game. He kind of did it when they played last year as well. And I think that's going to focus most of their attention on Kelsey at that point, since it's pretty much the only quarterback in the league that could cover Tyreek Hill one-on-one. And I think that's going to open up Damien a lot. I still think he's going to be the passing down back. I'm not worried about McCoy in that role at all. Full PPR, give me Damien. If it was standard, I would definitely take Breida. But in PPR, give me Damien.
All right, and then we're not going to give this listener much of an edge because I'm also going Damien Williams. So we're going to have a 2-2 split. Derrius Guice, sorry, bud, but you got no votes here. For me, I'm not worried about the usage for Damien Williams. I think he can be very productive and efficient, and in full PPR, that's going to be good enough for 15, 16, 17 points. Matt Breida, I have a slight concern because I'm somewhat aboard the Tevin Coleman train this year. And Dan, you made a good point. There's some depth charts that are showing Matt Breida ahead of him. I find it hard to trust Matt Breida, and I give the edge to Tevin Coleman in that offense. But also, we're going to see a lot of production in a high-scoring game from Kittle and even Marquise Goodwin. But I find it hard to trust Matt Breida. And with Derrius Guice, they're going to be playing from behind. I actually think the sneaky play overall in that backfield is Chris Thompson this week. I don't like Derrius Guice. I don't like Adrian Peterson. Just for this week, I think they're going to be playing from behind. It's one of the larger spreads this week, a 10-point spread. I'm out on Derrius Guice for this week. So that's going to be a 2-2 split for Damien Williams and Matt Breida. We might have to do something as a tiebreaker here. Hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on the situation, and we can at least get rid of Derrius Guice. Next one up, scoring was provided here. It's full PPR. Dan, we're going to start with you. Marvin Jones, Josh Gordon, Alshon Jeffery. What do you think?
Whew, that's another interesting one. I think Mitch's Detroit Lions are a little bit sneaky. I thought Matthew Stafford looked good in the preseason. Josh Gordon's really hard not to start. He's worked with Tom Brady in the offseason. N'Keal Harry's out. Gronk's gone. Hogan's gone. Do you really trust Demaryius Thomas, who played against the third string in the preseason, or Philip Dorsett? Alshon Jeffery, I like him in the Philadelphia offense a lot, although I'm not really drafting Jeffery that much. I'm going to go with Josh Gordon here. I think that's going to be a high-scoring shootout versus the Steelers, and I'm going to bet on talent. I know they have Edelman, but I think the Steelers are going to try somehow to contain Edelman. Josh Gordon's going to hit a big one.
All right, Mitch, what do you think here? Are you going with your Detroit Lion, or are you going with Josh Gordon and Alshon Jeffery?
No, I agree with everything Dan said. It's Josh Gordon for me for those exact same reasons.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jordan. Is this going to be chalk here? What are you taking?
Dude, I'm slamming Josh Gordon. I'm sorry, dude. It's going to be a shootout. It's the Pittsburgh pass rush is nothing but TJ Watt. Brady's going to have plenty of time to hit all the receivers. It's going to be Edelman, Josh Gordon, James White might get involved a little bit, but Josh Gordon might get the 6 receptions, 2 touchdown treatment this weekend.
All right, well, I'm going to throw the curveball here and disagree. I have Marvin Jones at Arizona. If there's anywhere to place this wager, I would say that the Detroit Lions run more offensive plays than the Arizona Cardinals this week. There is a concern that Kerryon Johnson is going to be heavily used because I think they're going to be able to pick apart that defense. But I don't think it's crazy to see Marvin Jones with a stat line of 5 or 6 receptions, 70 to 80 yards, and a touchdown. So I'm taking Marvin Jones. I do have a concern with Josh Gordon. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense has improved. It's faster this year. And one concern that I have with Josh Gordon, Mitch, you and I have talked about this previously with the Steelers defense. One thing they love to do is put a linebacker on the slot receiver. I think Julian Edelman is going to pick apart this defense. And I actually think James White's going to be heavily involved in the passing game. So I think Josh Gordon's going to be one of the I don't want to say he's going to have a terrible game, but if I'm choosing between these three, I'm going Marvin Jones. And again, poor Alshon Jeffery, 0 votes here. Now, this is an interesting one. So we're going to have kind of 2 separate questions on the same player. So, Mitch, we're going to start with you. 6-point passing touchdowns. Are we going Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, or Matt Ryan?
This one was tough for me. I really wanted to go Lamar, but I'm just going to go Cam. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. Not going to play Matt Ryan against Minnesota. You know, if I get to choose between these 3, Lamar's awesome, but that 6-point for passing touchdown, I think that's going to help out Cam a little bit more. So give me him.
Jordan, I'm going to bounce it over to you. Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, 6-point passing touchdowns.
I'm kind of with Mitch as well. I'm not playing Matt Ryan over Cam, especially. I mean, I have one league where I have Cam and Matt Ryan. Lamar is never really an option for me because I don't have him anywhere. And I mean, truthfully, 6-point passing touchdowns, I'm going to eliminate him off the bat. So it really comes down between Matt Ryan and Cam Newton for me. And with the way I see Carolina and LA Rams going week 1, this could be one of the highest scoring games of the week. I'm playing Curtis Samuel. I'm playing DJ Moore. Christian McCaffrey is going to have a field day. Give me Cam Newton all day.
And then, Dan, is this Cam for you?
I think I'm going to have to break up the Cam Fest here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
All right, make it interesting.
Let's go.
Yeah, a very difficult one. You know, whoever's making, who has these 3 quarterbacks are making a decision. I don't think you could go wrong. They're all good picks. I think Miami's terrible. I think Lamar Jackson, could have a great game. I think we all love the weapons that Cam has. All signs look like he's healthy, but I think it's one that I want to monitor first. I can't remember. Forget how many times I took Cam Newton last season and he let me down. And I'm going to rely on my rankings here and go with Matty Ice. I think he's the highest ranked guy on my board. He has all the weapons. Atlanta looks explosive. Give me Matty Ryan.
I am going to surprise people with this pick.
No way.
As much as I've been touting Matt Ryan, I think he's a safe option this week. His ceiling does worry me, and I'm assuming this is going to be a 1-quarterback league, so I'm looking for upside in this situation. I'm also going with Cam Newton. Jordan, you hit the nail on the head. This is going to be a shootout. I think it's very reasonable to see Cam Newton with 4 total touchdowns. And in a 6-point passing touchdown league, I think that's going to be extremely valuable. I could see this game being 34-28 or something. And if I were a betting man, I think everybody knows that I am, I would gladly take the over here. But yeah, I'm going Cam Newton. I love Matt Ryan. I think he's a safe option. But Cam Newton, again, I think he has the upside. Lamar Jackson, the rushing upside is there. Now, let's transition to the second part of this question. It's Cam Newton versus Lamar Jackson. Now it's 4-point passing touchdowns. Is anybody changing their vote? Well, Dan, you're forced to change your vote because you had Matt Ryan. So we'll start with you, Dan. Are you taking Lamar Jackson or Cam Newton? 4-point passing touchdowns.
That would be enough to put me on the Cam train there. I expect Baltimore to run the ball and have a field day running the ball. So I'll go with Cam Newton, and I definitely have plenty of shares of DJ Moore that I'll be rooting for.
Mitch, what about you?
No change for me.
Jordan?
No, if anybody's the beneficiary of Baltimore running the ball, it's going to be Mark Ingram, so no.
You know how I feel about Mark Ingram, so you just won over my heart. This is going to be a 4-0 sweep for Cam Newton. And again, I don't think it's going to be a crazy difference. So hopefully the rest of your lineup is okay. I don't think it's going to be a make or break situation. But yeah, this is going to be a 4-0 sweep for Cam Newton over Lamar Jackson with 4-point passing touchdowns. Now, this next one, I was happy that we got a tight end question. This is going to be an interesting one. And Jordan, let's start with you. It is tight end premium. So let's just assume 1.5 PPR for tight ends. Are you taking Jared Cook versus Houston on Monday night, or are you taking Vance McDonald at New England, the Sunday night matchup?
Oh, that's tough. I'm just going to take Jared Cook just because I think that he's going to get the opportunities as far as the number 2 receiver goes. Maybe not the necessary number 2 target goes, but as far as, guys that are going to be running out wide most of the plays, it's going to be Jared Cook. So give me Cook. I'm not a big fan of Vance McDonald personally, so I think it's going to be Juju. I think it's going to be James Conner and Samuels in the passing game. So yeah, just give me Jared Cook.
Mitch, what are you thinking?
I'm definitely taking Vance. Like we were talking about with New England earlier, they're going to put up points. And Vance is the Steelers' second wide receiver on that team pretty much. I don't think it's Moncrief. I don't think it's Washington. So I think Vance is going to be pretty involved. And so give me Vance going against that defense.
Dan?
I like this one because I don't know what hype is on Jared Cook. How many different teams have given up on him? He flashes for about 3 games a year. He disappears. And I just don't want to take that chance in this being one of the 3 out of 16 games. I think there was a cool post on Twitter this week with Bill Belichick going up to Chad Johnson in the past in the pregame when Chad was with the Bengals. And he says, I'm going to W this game. And Chad was all upset. He goes, no, coach. I think he's going to go up to Juju and say, we are going to W this game. And they're going to take the chances on someone else beating him. And I think Vance is going to be that guy. I think Vance is in for a big year, and I'm Vance 100%.
Again, I think I'm going to surprise some people here. And I've been screaming from the mountaintops on Vance McDonald all off season. But for this week, I'm going Jared Cook. Again, I think that's going to be a really high-scoring game. And maybe I just have a bad taste in my mouth from last year's Steelers-Patriots game, but I took the over in that game, I'm going to be honest. And it was anything but over. It was a very low-scoring game, and I think it's going to be super competitive. I'm not saying it's going to be as low-scoring as last year, but I think opportunities are going to be at a premium compared to the Saints versus Houston. With tight end premium, I think Cook is going to edge out Vance. Again, I don't think it's going to be a crazy difference. Hopefully it's nothing that's going to make or break your week. I would not be shocked if Vance did find the end zone here, but I think he's going to be in that 3 to 4 reception range. And I could see Cook putting up 6, 7, 8 receptions actually in a higher scoring game. So for me, it's Jared Cook. And then also a lot of things have changed since last season. But if you look at the tight end success rates against these defenses, Houston gave up a successful play to tight ends on 54% of the targets. And it's not a crazy difference, but New England was down to 50%. And again, I really like Vance McDonald, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Jared Cook. I hate to do it here to the listener, but you're getting a 2-2 split. Again, we got to figure some way out to break the tie on some of these. But moving on, and this is a little bit different. This one, we're sitting one of the guys. So, Jordan, let's start with you. Sit one of these players. No scoring was provided, so let's assume PPR. Derrius Guice, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, Peyton Barber. Who are you sitting?
Oh, it's Peyton Barber all the way. I mean, it's just because I don't want any part of the Tampa Bay backfield until we figure out who is actually going to get the ball. I'm on the fence of thinking that Darrell Gunbola is going to get the ball most of the time. So let's just sit Barber week 1. Let's let the wide receivers and O.J. Howard figure it out week 1. It's probably going to be a high-scoring game. Lots of passing. Jameis, a couple picks, maybe 3, maybe 4 touchdowns. We'll see. But I'm hoping for a lot of passing. We'll see how the run game plays out, but I'm going to sit Barber easily.
With all the Jameis shares that I have, I sure as hell wouldn't mind 4 touchdowns. I could even throw a few picks in there. Mitch, who are you? I was going to say who are you taking, but who are you sitting in this situation out of the 4?
I agree with Jordan. I don't trust that Tampa Bay backfield yet, and I think it's one that's a really easy fade this week, even though I really don't like Guice in Philadelphia either. But we at least know he's going to get work, and with Barber, even if he gets work, we don't know if he's going to do anything with it in the first place. So I'll definitely say him in this spot.
Dan, over to you.
I'm on the same train, guys. I looked at these 4, Kirk and Marvin Jones, I think are quality plays. Guice, I'm not crazy about, so I had to think about it a little bit, but I would start Guice based on talent. And then when you look at that Tampa Bay backfield of their 3 running backs, which is 3 too many, Rojo and Dare are the ones that I think one of those 2 are going to rise, and it's not going to be Barber.
All right, so I'm either going to look extremely foolish after this show, and you 3 can gloat all the way until next week's episode, or as the outlier in most of these, maybe I'll be looking good. But Mitch, cover your ears. I'm going with Christian Kirk. I worry about what that offense is going to look like. Derrius Guice, again, I don't think he has a ton of upside this week, but we know that he's going to get some work. Marvin Jones, I really like him this week. Peyton Barber, I think it's going to be a timeshare, but I still think he gets a majority of the work. So for me, it's Christian Kirk. And Mitch, I'll give you a chance here for a rebuttal because I know you're going to have an issue with that take.
I just think Kirk's going to be on the field, and in PPR, even say they get behind by Detroit, like what we've kind of said what's going to happen. They get behind, they're going to have to pass the ball. They could get garbage time. Kirk can, we brought it up on this week's Superflexology that he's also going to be returning punts, and he could also have a punt return touchdown. So I definitely want him in my lineup.
Would you be shocked, though, or would any of you be shocked if you saw a 3 for 30 stat line this week?
I think it beats Barber.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
all right.
3 for 30 would match Barber. I'll take the
No doubt in my mind. Barber can get 14 carries and get 52 yards.
All right, well then again, we're gonna see how this one plays out. For the listener that posed this question, you have your answer. If you want to trust Mitch, Jordan, and Dan, you're gonna sit Barber. If you want to listen to me, sit Christian Kirk. But I have a feeling most people would agree with you guys here and sit Peyton Barber. Now this next one, this is an interesting one. There's 5 guys here, so it's getting down to the nitty gritty. 5 guys to choose from. 0.5 PPR for the scoring. Dan, who are you playing out of Dante Pettis, Michael Gallup, Adrian Peterson, James Washington, and then Matt Breida is making a return to the start-sit show here?
How many are we selecting here? We're starting 4, sitting 1, or
just pick one. Just pick one to play.
Just pick one.
There's a lot of options here.
I think, I'm going to go with our first one of the night, and I'm going to go back to Matt Breida and just the faith in Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers backfield in a shootout versus Tampa Bay. Pettis is tempting, but it's only half-point PPR, so I'm going to go with Matt Breida.
Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm always going the running back and the flex. I mean, it's got to be Breida at this point too. Like he said as well, like the shootout, it's gonna be Shanahan's running backs, blah 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 blah. I mean, all offer way more upside than any of the other players on the list. I mean, if we were ranking those players, I mean, Breida would be in my top 36 for the week, and then Washington would probably be my 75 to 90 range. So I mean, it's easily Breida for me.
And Mitch, over to you. What are you saying here?
It's going to be chalky. I'm going to go Breida for the exact same reasons.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw the curveball in here again. You
don't have to do this. You don't have to do this.
So what's interesting and what I really like, we put these questions in our show notes and we all have our takes. But as far as I know, I didn't discuss who I was taking with any of you. And I don't think you guys discussed it with each other previously. So I promise I'm not making these picks to be a contrarian with, to you three, but I'm going with Dante Pettis. I just think it's going to be a really high scoring game. And I wouldn't be shocked to see a 4 or 5 catch day, 100 yards and a touchdown. He's the guy that I want, even though it's 0.5 PPR. I don't think he's going to be too negatively impacted. Matt Breida, I'm still just concerned, like I said earlier, how that backfield is going to be used. Adrian Peterson, he's behind Guice and they're going to be behind Michael Gallup. I think we're going to see a lot of the run game there with Amari Cooper playing. I don't know if he's going to get a ton of targets. And then my note next to James Washington is vomit. You guys know how I feel. I want nothing to do with James Washington. I am in the Dante Moncrief camp. I don't think he's going to have much of an impact here in week 1. And Dan, you sounded surprised by that.
I do. One, because you're a Steelers fan, but some of my intel and just listen to a million podcasts is James Washington is in incredible shape this offseason, and I think he's a sleeper.
Oh, he had a great preseason.
Hey, tell me this. How many of his receptions this preseason came with Ben Roethlisberger?
It might have been 1, if any.
Zero. Every single play he made this preseason was with Mason Rudolph.
And I don't
facts.
I don't mean to call it on here, but I think a lot of his receptions were against guys that are now bagging groceries or maybe working at a car dealership or something that's not involving football. But Dan, you're not alone on that because I have been in battles on Twitter regarding Dante Moncrief and James Washington. And during some of the preseason games when James Washington went off, I actually had to go into hiding a few times. So I will say you're not alone on that take.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't argue with the Steeler fan. And I know that Mason Rudolph's storyline is there, but I think it was from a Schefter podcast where it was, the trainer of like Le'Veon Bell brought in James Washington this year, and he was very impressed. He had said that was his sleeper. So just something for our listening audience there. Not arguing with the Steeler fan, Bauer, but I just got a hunch.
I try to separate my fandom from fantasy, and it's actually caused issues when I've watched games with friends or family, because I don't care who we're playing against. If I have an opponent on my fantasy team, I'm cheering for that player. So maybe I'm not the best of fans here, but so those are our start sit situations. I am hoping that we shed some light on a few of them, maybe some more than others, because we did have a few splits, but we will be posting all of our answers after we release the show prior to Sunday morning. And we did get a ton of questions regarding players playing Thursday night. Unfortunately, whenever this episode is released, that game will have already finished. Moving forward, maybe we can have a few shows incorporate the Thursday night game, and we'll make sure that we get this out prior to that. Now, I think this is going to be a really interesting aspect of the show. We're going to the DFS stuff, and what we want to do, and if you have more than one guy, that's okay. Throw a few out. That's fine. But we're going to run through some guys that are priced under $6,000 on DraftKings. These are guys that we want to include in our lineups. So, Dan, let's start with you. And I have a note here, and it might change up to this point because of the Zeke signing, but no Tony Pollard. Okay, so under $6,000 on DraftKings, who's a guy that you want to tell our listeners about?
I think I'll surprise some people here. And, trying to find a GPP play or even cash games, someone that I don't think everyone's going to be on. I'm going to go with the quarterback position and Nick Foles at $5,300 in what I think is going to be a shootout versus Kansas City with an over-under 52. I know the Jaguars are projected to score some good points there at home. I think his ownership is going to be real low, and I think he can run. I think Foles is going to run for 30, 40 yards on top of some good passing stats versus the Chiefs. I know there was a questionable tag put on him today, something with an abdomen muscle. I think that'll scare some people away more. People will be on Jacoby Brissett. So I am all high on Nick Foles like I've been, and I know no one's going to be on him because every best ball, every draft I've been in, I've gotten him towards the end. So I even heard an NFL GM say, look out for Nick Foles this year. So look out, guys.
I like that pick a lot. Jordan, who are you throwing out for our listeners under $6,000 on DraftKings? Who's a guy you're targeting?
I love this one. I'm super passionate about this one, but at $5,000 as a super, super cheap RB2 flex, Tevin Coleman, brother. I mean, that unofficial 49ers depth chart came out. I did a little research. All I had to do was one Google search. I found the Denver Broncos depth chart, unofficial, going into week 1. Phillip Lindsay, running back 3. That shit doesn't matter. I'm sorry if I can't curse on this podcast, but that shit doesn't matter.
We'll let it slip in. We'll let it slip in.
Tevin Coleman is going to be the guy on Sunday. He is going to get all the receiving work. He has been cursed by Steve Sarkisian in the last 2 years. Tevin Coleman is going to be a stud this year. He's going to be an easy RB2 play on Sunday. Book that $5,000, easy money.
All right. Well, you mentioned it earlier, so I have to call you out on it. You said that you might contradict yourself when talking about Matt Breida. So how do you see them being used this week? Do you really think that both are going to be fantasy relevant if Tevin Coleman's going to be used as much as you think?
I think there's going to be so much offensive play on Sunday that they're both going to be used, and Breida could snake a touchdown or two. But if I'm going to play simply on cheap flex upside, it's going to be Tevin Coleman easily for $5,000.
Okay. And then, Mitch, who do you have?
I have D.D. Westbrook because it's just kind of piggybacking off what Dan said. But super high-scoring game. I
have him on my list as well, but I'm going to give this one.
I was actually shocked that he went through. I thought he would have been picked pretty high. The Chiefs really don't have anyone to cover him. He's going to get a lot of targets. In DFS, I always look for guys that are going to get at least 10 targets a game out of the wide receiver spot. I think you could chalk DD in for about that much in this game. And so I'm going to have him in. I only play one lineup in cash games and single entries and all those, but I just want DD in every lineup if I'm playing FanDuel, DraftKings, Fantasy Draft, whatever.
I'm going to piggyback off of that. I can't see a situation. So he's going for $4,800, and that's the 29th most expensive wide receiver. I would be shocked if he doesn't return at least 4 times his value. He's going to get at least 20 points, and I just don't see a situation against that defense with how many points we think. It's one of the highest over-under lines in Vegas, and I think it's really going to be a high-scoring game. So D.D. Westbrook, Mitch, I think that's a smash. I'm going to mention 2 guys, and my only concern with these 2 guys I think they're going to be in a lot of lineups, and that's Chris Carson, surprise, surprise, and Mark Ingram. Both guys are going to get used a ton. Seattle and Baltimore, they're going to get off to early leads. And at $5,700 and $5,100, they're both going to return great value on the investment there. So again, in tournaments, I think they're going to be owned quite a bit. But if you're doing head-to-head or you're doing cash games, they're guys that I want. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on Carson and Ingram?
Big plays. I mean, talking to you this week in multiple drafts, John, I've hopped on the Carson train with you. As you've been fighting for him for a long time, and I love Ingram. I think Baltimore paid him a lot of money for a reason. But to your point, they're going to be a little bit chalky. So it's, I think, great for cash lineups. GPP, you have some tougher decisions to make.
Right, and that's my only concern. And that's one reason that I had D.D. Westbrook on my slate here, and Mitch had to steal him away from me. But as always, Mitch, I will forgive you. I will forgive you for your wrongdoing. Let's get to the bust. So a guy that's over $6,000 that we are staying away from, and maybe, obviously in redraft or a dynasty league or best ball, they're going to be just fine. But when you look at their current price tag, it's a guy that you're staying away from. Mitch, start us off. Who is a guy going for over $6,000 in DraftKings that you want nothing to do with?
So mine's going to be Tyreek Hill. We brought him up earlier, but I've looked over some ownership projections on a couple different sites, and everyone has him as the highest owned wide receiver going this week. And it's absolutely crazy. Jalen Ramsey is going to shut him down. You're hoping that he has one of those plays where he could get 60 yards and a touchdown, because he's definitely not going to get 8 targets. Well, he might get 8 targets, but he's not going to get eight catches. And my fade is definitely Tyreek Hill.
With how high I am on Travis Kelce and, of course, Damian Williams, that makes a lot of sense for me. I think he's going to be – we've been told that he's going to be shadowed, and I think it's going to be really tough for him. He's going to have a rough go at it. And at his price, I agree. I don't think that's somebody that I'm going to be looking at. Dan, who are you looking at here? Who are you avoiding?
I'll probably shock everybody here. It's against everything I believe in. And, again, this is for – DFS only, but highly priced. Stay away from Zeke at 9,200, the highest running back on the board. No training camp. Hopefully he doesn't pull a hammy, because I have him in a lot of leagues. Tony Pollard will sneak in there, so, some reps. But I think Dallas may pull him early, and ultimately I just think there's better options. There's a lot of great running backs. As much as Dallas Nation's probably still going to take a lot of shares in Zeke, my recommendation is to stay away. I think they blow out the Giants and he sits early.
Dan, you mentioned that you're hoping he doesn't pull a hammy. I'm sure you're familiar. We have somewhat of a Superflexology curse. So we've mentioned things like this in the past, and there have been issues. We've done a Sterling Shepard jersey giveaway. He broke his thumb the next week. We did a Michael Thomas jersey giveaway. He held out. We brought up Andrew Luck, and we said jokingly he was going to retire. The next week he retired. So I'm hoping for everybody that has Ezekiel Elliott, for their sake and for yours as a Dallas Cowboy fan, that you didn't just put the curse on him.
John, now I'm nervous. When I get this phone, I am calling and getting every share of Tony Pollard I could get.
No, I'm sure it'll be fine. But again, that would be something crazy. Again, the Superflexology curse. Jordan, who are you telling our listeners to stay away from in DraftKings?
All right, so for the sake of what Dan said, I really do like Zeke as far as that fade goes. But when I'm looking at it right now, when you take out Andrew Luck, Baker Mayfield is the QB4 on DraftKings at 6,400. I really do think this team's going to be a low-scoring game. I think all the hype around the Browns offense is going to create a chalk scenario for Mayfield, and anywhere where you can get Cam Newton for $100 more expensive or someone else for cheaper, i.e. Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, et cetera, that's a huge win.
I agree with that. Not necessarily with Baker Mayfield, but just the quarterback position as a whole. I think for week 1, there are a lot of cheaper options. And Dan, I love the Nick Foles take, because that's going to be a high scoring game. So I love the Nick Foles, D.D. Westbrook stack that we talked about previously. But yeah, I'm not looking to spend money on quarterbacks. Now, there are 2 guys that I want to throw out. Dan, cover your ears, because it's going to be another Dallas Cowboy. I can't spend $7,000 on Amari Cooper. He's going as the wide receiver 7 in terms of price, and that's just too much for me. I don't see him returning even 3 times his value. It's somebody that I'm just not looking at. I think he's going to get the targets, but at that price, I'm definitely going to look elsewhere. And then against the Detroit Lions, David Johnson does concern me. Again, in redraft, dynasty, best ball, obviously, I think these are going to be okay plays. You're not going to sit them in any situation, but at their current price, I'm not paying $7,700 for David Johnson. And I know we shouldn't be looking at the way the Cardinals ran their offense in the preseason. It was very vanilla. It wasn't as explosive as we expected, but I do have a concern with how that offense is going to operate in the very first game. Running back 5 price, David Johnson, I'm not going to pay it. So one thing we want to bring up before we sign off and we conclude the first episode of the Superflexology Start Sit series. Every week, we're going to do a DraftKings listener league, and it's only going to be like $5, but something to engage the listeners. And for week 1, we're going to start it with 20 entrants. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. We'll also be blasting it on Twitter. We'll be in our league chats, letting people know. And then eventually, I'm hoping that we can expand that and let that grow. But it's just going to be something, again, fun, $5, just something to engage the listeners and just another reason to get some more guys in your lineups and to cheer for this week. So with that said, we have concluded the first episode of the Superflexology Start Sit series. I challenge anybody to say that 5 times fast. I'm very interested to see how it plays out. And again, we're going to be keeping score here as the season progresses. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I'm John Bauer. Find me on Twitter at The Bauer Club, for Mitch Sorensen at DinoMC, for Dan LaMagna, for Jordan Lindsay. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great night.